Housing Wire recently asked a great question. Do we really have a home ownership crisis in this country? But before we jump into that, make sure you hit subscribe below to stay on top of all of the latest Huntsville, Alabama real estate news. So with the US's home ownership rates really being kind of in the middle of the pack of all the other kind of quote unquote rich countries across the world, and then also with little changing in the home ownership rates, over the past 50 years, we've really kind of stayed in that mid 60 range for the past 50 years. So a lot of people are wondering, do we really have that home ownership crisis in the US? So you've heard the saying that you can get statistics to say whatever you want to, and that's really the case in this situation. Home ownership rates are currently measured at owning households divided by total households. It really should be measured owning people, not households, people divided by total people, because our traditional measurement does not really factor in and include all the young people moving in with their parents. The 25 to 34-year-old groups living with their parents has more than doubled in the past 60 years, which is really where our decrease in home ownership rates is occurring when you change it based on the new measurement, which is really people, not households. Charles Dickens once said, it was the best of times and it was the worst of times. And that's really kind of where we're at from a financial standpoint in this country. For many with appreciating assets, record stock prices, and interest rates locked into the 2s and maybe even the low 3s, it is the best of time financially for some of these folks. However, if you're a young person without assets, you have higher interest rates as you're looking to buy your first home in the 7% range, credit card debt, student loan debt, wage growth really not keeping up with inflation, this is making it the worst of times for young people financially, which is why they are moving back in with their parents and we have this overall home ownership decline. So you might be thinking, hey, I'm on the other end of the perspective. Financially, I'm in a good situation. Well, in reality, this is an issue for everyone. Our economy, even Social Security, national security relies on demographics. And if the next generation is struggling to move out of their family's home or their parents' home, get married and have babies, then ultimately that's gonna be a bad thing for all of us across the US. And many of the so-called experts are trying to tout the benefits of this nomad renter life. In reality, it's just plain bad for society. And it's bad for society because homeowners have more civic pride in their community on average, and it's also how most people build their net worth. A strong middle class is really good for everyone across society. How do we solve this big challenge that we have? Well, number one is fixing or really eliminating the Fed is gonna be a great place to start. That's really a topic for another video because the Fed has done so much damage economically to our country, but again, that's a whole video in of itself. So moving on to the next point is going to be fixing supply. We have about a 6 million home deficit across this country. And so to fix a deficit supply, we just got to build more homes. And builders right now, they're doing everything they can to stay in business, to keep inventory moving. Oftentimes they're having to do a lot of rate buy downs, which is extremely expensive and cutting into their margins. If they have to continue to do that, they may slow down production. And so we need to look at incentives to keep builders moving, continue the production levels that we have, but really increase that so that we can cut into that 6 million home deficit. The next point is for developers. We need to remove developmental barriers so that we can develop communities faster and get builders building in those communities as well. Reducing environmental impact fees, whatever fee, because a lot of cities, there's a lot of fees associated with building a home before you even break ground. And so reducing those barriers is going to be a huge help in a lot of these larger cities. Also, tax credit for investors to sell. There's a lot of mom and pop and big institutional investors that have portfolios of homes, and if we can get a percentage of those homes back on the market, that will definitely help with supply as well. And along that lines, we need to look at limiting large institutional investors, simply because we don't have enough supply out there. And if they're buying hundreds and even thousands of homes across the country, that is impacting first-time home buyers and all these millennials, younger generation into getting homes. And so we need to limit the purchases of large institutional investors in favor of first-time home buyers and bringing back that civic pride and helping them build wealth through home ownership. So another area as well is looking at ADUs, accessory dwelling units in some areas and some subdivisions to allow additional density. I've already done a video on that for Huntsville. I don't know that we need that yet here in Huntsville, but likely over the coming years. And then another thing that we need to look at is zoning across not only Huntsville, but across the US to allow more affordable housing options and more density for housing options. So for example, tiny homes or even 2-bedroom homes, just to get more density, get more homeowners out there.